So, hi John, welcome to the Singapore, right? Yeah, and my first question is, want to introduce yourself and your last experience, also why you joined the Coinbase.
Yeah, hey Colin, hey 大家好，你好 Colin，Colin 他是我的老朋友，在香港。现在我在一个新加坡一个2024 F1，还有一个 Token 2049，一个 conference。Okay, 你的问题 your question. My background is a little bit unusual. I think a mix of kind of corporate and operator. Lots of people with that background at Coinbase actually. So I'm a New Zealander, went to university in the United States, and then did a little bit of travel and some sport. And then I wound up in London in 2000, which was just before the first .com crash. So basically Web 1, probably before most of your listeners were born. And I went to work at Goldman Sachs in the telecom media technology, TMT, investment banking team. And we were working with lots of the first big mobile companies. So mobile handset and mobile network, Nokia, Sony, Ericsson, Motorola, names now that have kind of been a little bit forgotten. But back then, you know, all the big players were Yahoo, Netscape, and it was a very different world. And so I kind of lived through Web 1. Then I put my hand up to go to New York. And then moved out after 5 years between London and New York, went out to Beijing and worked at Goldman Sachs in China with Gaoshan Gaohua. So Goldman Sachs JV in China with Gaohua Securities. That was in 2005, 2006. There weren't too many requirements for kind of non-Chinese bankers in China by that time. I think you might know, or some of your listeners may know, someone called Feng Lei. He was the chairman of Gaohua, very successful Chinese banker. And so I wanted to stay in China. And so I asked around and spent a lot of time talking to people, wanted to kind of work in a real industry, kind of on the front line. And somehow I got in the pizza business, Pizza Jardien, and worked for a big American brand, Domino's, Dame Le Pizza, Jiamangdian, a franchising business. And then having learned the pizza business for 3 years across Asia, so from Japan down to Indonesia, negotiating a lot of master franchises and getting to know kind of Chinese and Asian culture and big conglomerate business in Thailand, Singapore, Vietnam, Taiwan, Hong Kong. Actually in Hong Kong, we tried very hard to partner with Fairwood Group from Fairwood Cafes. And so having learned that business and some of the practices in the region, in Beijing, we decided to open our own pizza brand. And that was very kind of gourmet, called Jiaoban Pizza, Gung Ho Pizza, real kind of Dongbei brand, kind of Dongbei Hua. And did that for about the next 10 years. We had 8 stores in Beijing. Why that's relevant to this conversation is because it put me into the world of WeChat and Tencent and Alipay, Zhifubao, Ele.me, Meituan, Dazhong Dianping, all of these kind of big delivery platforms. And much like, you know, Didi and Uber in China, China was like 10 years ahead in all of this stuff, right? In the group buying, in the food delivery, in the kind of fusion of online, offline. Had a young baby and got married. My wife's family's from Hong Kong and decided to return to where she grew up in Australia. And so we sold the business. It's still operating. I still have a stake in Domino's China, which is listed in Hong Kong. That's got well over 1,000 stores in China. So that's a really strong business. And then back in Australia, I was a little bit kind of confused, not knowing what to do. And somehow I got introduction to Alibaba and Ma Yun and Joe Tsai and the kind of Alibaba and Ant team. And they were just growing the international business. And so we had a wonderful 6 or 7 years working there with a woman called Maggie Zhou Lan. and she was Jack Ma's assistant, his EA for a long time, even before Alibaba at the Yellow Pages business in Hangzhou. And so we spent a lot of time helping Australian, New Zealand brands get up to China, help them understand, Tmall, Tianmao Dashui, Tmall University, all the back end of the e-commerce system, because very different to like Amazon tools or doing things on Western platform. Also get lots of products up onto Lazada in Singapore. And then the next wave was with the Chinese student and the Chinese tourist, and actually all of the kind of Asian students and tourists coming to Australia and New Zealand to study and to travel and holiday, and using Zhifubao, Alipay or WeChat Pay. And so we integrated that with all of the retailers, the hotels, the universities, the theme park, the airlines. And so, if you're a Zhifubao user in Beijing or Nanjing or Hangzhou, Suzhou, whatever, you come down to Australia, as soon as you land at the airport, you're kind of inundated with offers and opportunities, and it just kind of can channel your whole journey and make it, 非常方便, 非常厉害, very kind of, convenient for you. 非常太舒服, make you feel comfortable in a foreign country with this app. And, lots of those Western brands paid a lot of money to get access to those Chinese travelers and Chinese students. So that also gave me a lot of exposure to Chinese product engineering and design, and also trying to localize product engineering design for Chinese in Australia and tourists, who's very different to Chinese in China. Chinese tourists in Australia are spending like $8,000 a day on average, and that's a lot different to the spend for someone in mainland China. So a lot of those themes actually we're seeing now at Coinbase as we internationalize the business and we make sure the product, particularly to your listeners, the trading product is up to scratch. And so we've got a lot of work to do there. There's lots of improvements. We're very excited about improving the product and localizing it, having more Chinese language, better fees, etc., both on the retail side, retail advanced trading side, and on the institutional side. So that's a little bit of my background. When Ant got into a little bit of trouble with the Chinese regulators, I decided my time with Ant was done, had a little break from China, and somehow got into the world that you're in, this crypto world. And so, incredibly dynamic. I think the reason I joined Coinbase is probably for its brand and its reputation and its mission. The mission is very, very bold and very altruistic to increase economic freedom. Having lived all around the world with different bank accounts and having lots of friends who are oftentimes possibly don't have as much economic freedom as I'm used to, it really kind of upset me traveling around the world and even living in Australia, a big advanced economy, just how expensive it is to move money around. And so, I know lots of my team members, their families were a long way away in Taiwan or at Gung Ho. A lot of our team members, their families were up in Dongbei or Hubei or Ningxia or somewhere. And to get money back to them before Zhifubao and before WeChat Pay was really hard. And now it's really easy and convenient. And so they completely kind of reinvented the Chinese banking system. That might have got Jack into a little bit of trouble, but I think Chinese consumers would say on the most part that's been really helpful. A lot of similar trends with Coinbase and Brian Armstrong and the company's mission in terms of what we want to do with decentralized finance. So I hope that answers some of your question, Colin.
Yeah. My second question is, after you joined the Coinbase, and we know in the past year, Coinbase started to do more business out of America, and we call the Coinbase International. Can you introduce more your job now? Also, what's the situation or some data of the Coinbase International?
Yeah, certainly, Colin, and that's right on point. I think when we last met about 9 months ago, this was just beginning to pick up this international kind of momentum in the business. And around when we met, Brian Armstrong actually issued an internal email really pushing for all teams internally to kind of make international first a priority. So, Coinbase is an 11-year-old company. It's been incredibly successful in North America, where it's a household name, kind of like, Tencent in China.
Yeah.
It's got, over 100 million users. There's a huge array of products on the platform, and we want to take that global. But not all of those products and offers are immediately transferable to other geos for all sorts of reasons, cultural reasons, regulatory reasons. And so we're in a process now of addressing all of those things and doing it in a very kind of dynamic fashion, market by market. Let me explain how we organize the business from the three big buckets of commercial business and then kind of through geographies and functions. So the three big parts of the business are consumer, which is the retail app that everyone uses, institutional, which is a series of more advanced apps that hedge funds and prime brokers and institutions and wealth managers and family offices use. And then the developer arm of the business, which is the Web3 services, things like the Layer 2 Ethereum base. Exactly. And so my day job, and for most of the company, the day job is on consumer. Consumer is the majority of the business, and it's supported by institutional and base. In the consumer business, we have 10 markets internationally that we're fully registered in throughout Europe, North and South America, and Asia. We're looking to open more markets internationally year by year. And when we go into a market, typically we're very much different and kind of differentiated from some of the players you mentioned in our conversations earlier, some of the really big offshore players, whereby we're fully regulated on the ground with AML functions, compliance functions, local registered directors who comply with their responsible manager duties, etc. And so that's quite a heavy governance overlay, but we believe it's very important for where the industry is going as it matures and grows up. We divide the world by three regions: EMEA, Europe, Middle East, and Africa; the Americas, clearly from Canada right down to the bottom of Chile, South America; and then APAC, which is the region that I'm very fortunate to be the regional managing director for, and that spreads from Japan to India. We've got a hub in Singapore, so we've got quite big teams in Singapore across all of our various functions. We've got teams in India that are doing lots for onboarding and payments and customer service, AI, machine learning, and big customer support teams in the Philippines. But because we are a remote-first company, and remote first is very much part of our culture as well, we have people all over APAC, and we have a huge number of Chinese in the company spread all over the world, and clearly a lot of them in the engineering space and in pretty prominent positions. So that's a little bit of an overview of how we're organized by geo and by function. I think what people will have seen this year at Token 2049 is a show of our conviction in the region. It's the first time we've sponsored or been a sponsor of that conference. We had 3 people on various stages talking at the conference. I think that was more than any other centralized exchange. We had a very big space with Coinbase House and also Base Cafe as you entered the conference. At the top of the escalators is an activation zone for Base. And our institutional teams were just back to back with institutional meetings, and Base was barraged with inquiries as well. And lots of people were activated and went on to Base while they're actually waiting to buy their coffees. And so I think that's one example of showing, our support for the region. Additionally, we've recently worked with the EDB, and we have support from them to kind of support our employment program in the region, which we're delighted about. And that's based around adding more headcount to product engineering and design. We know there's great talent in the region, and we know Singapore wants to have that talent and keep that talent. Additionally, we're launching an accredited investor program in Singapore, which is aligned with incoming regulation. And in Australia as well, we're doubling down and sponsoring all sorts of events, marathons, sweepstakes, Oz CryptoCon. And I go back right on Monday and have a keynote position with the main crypto conference there, the AFR Summit, on Monday, with people like Anthony Scaramucci, who was just at Token 2049. Maybe a final point on the policy side about what we're doing in APAC. Lots of people have been looking to the American election this year, particularly because of some of the interactions we've had with the SEC and the challenges we've had there. And thankfully, we've been on the positive side of the outcome of those challenges. But we've been spending a lot of time with an initiative called Stand with Crypto, which is a bipartisan platform to really drive support from crypto users, of which there's over 50 million. So in the US, more people hold crypto than have electric vehicles, or hold crypto than have union cards. So it's a really big voting block. And in recent times, because of a lot of the work we've done with Stand with Crypto, which 1.4 million people have signed up to, both the Republicans and Democrats have taken, supporting the crypto community and that demographic of people who hold crypto as a group of voters, a voting bloc they want to support. And I don't think that was the case in the last elections. So we don't have a side. So we definitely see Singapore as a kind of wealth hub, like a private wealth hub, but for crypto through Coinbase Singapore.
Yeah, I think in the APAC region, the Coinbase had a very high reputation, because it's the listed company in the US, right? Also, it has the best reputation in the US. On the other hand, APAC has maybe the largest population in the world, right? And has a very crazy retired investors, right? In Korea, also maybe in the mainland of China. So I have a question is, now in the APAC for the international, Coinbase International, the users in which country maybe most important for you, or has the most users in which country?
Yeah, so actually right now our most users are in Australia. If we're really, simplistic about it, and second most users in Singapore. And that continues to grow very nicely. So Singapore as a hub model is very important for countries around Singapore, as well as Singaporeans. We are looking at multiple other markets in Asia, which we're interested in, and we have been for some time. We have actually been in a couple of markets historically in Asia and pulled out of those markets. And so we're looking to go back into those markets at some stage. I think having a huge amount of leadership at Token 2049, in addition to having leaders in and out of the region every second week, is just another kind of example of how seriously Coinbase is looking at this geo. But we have to your point, we have that reputation that is very much set around compliance and being fully regulated. So while some of those other exchanges are running very hard in places like Korea and other markets, and Bybit have just got into Korea, big partnership with Hana Bank and other guys, we take a little bit more cautious approach. And also I think because we're public, we're probably under more scrutiny from any regulator anywhere in the world who would like to kind of give us a slap on the wrist, because it's a very strong message to the industry. So sometimes being the good actor can actually be a little bit of a burden for you. But our overall mission of the company is economic freedom. And then Brian's other comment after that, and in a lot of our own cultural material, is to bring 1 billion people on chain. You're not going to do that in Europe.
Yeah.
You're not going to do that in North America. You're going to do it where you and I are sitting today in Asia. So we're looking at these markets. We've got developments and plans in place to address these markets. And I personally joined this organization 2.5 years ago to grow the Asian market. And we're not going to be able to do that by just being in Singapore and Australia. So super excited to be able to share some plans with you in the future. But we have a bunch of tools and platforms already that can do that. Base is a great example of that. Base is having a meetup somewhere in Asia, literally probably every day.
So for the exchange part, for the Coinbase International, you mean in every country you want to be compliant?
I think we'll choose the countries carefully.
Okay.
Some of these countries are really challenging from a regulatory environment. Some of these geos are a little bit kind of, how should I say, pay to play. The local authorities have kind of ring-fenced the number of licenses, and the licenses get a very high price.
Yeah.
A bit like a Singaporean taxi medallion or taxi license, right? There's only so many of them, so they become very, very expensive. Coinbase is not the type of company that's going to pay a huge amount of money to get into a market. We could possibly enter a market through M&A or through acquisition. We have a very active M&A team, just made an acquisition in Europe on the institutional side to give us access to 20 countries to distribute our ETF product and other products. So Coinbase Ventures and M&A, that's another avenue that could be helpful in Asia. We have 55 ventures investments in Asia already, the bulk of them in India and Singapore. So there's a number of options, but I don't think in 2025, 26 we're going to have offices like this and Coinbase teams in every country in ASEAN. But certainly we're going to be in a couple of more of the larger, more meaningful geographies.
Understand. What do you just told us the base is a very important part now, right? Because it can really make the economic free, make the financial free, right? And everyone can use the base chain. So the base chain is now is a very important or the part in the Coinbase future or in the Coinbase strategy?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think if you look back to the recent history, last time we met, Base had just come out of beta phase. Yeah. And, excuse me, I think if I sat in that room with you and that dinner we had and said to people Base, they would have looked at me like, what are you talking about? Never heard of it. Maybe some people in Web3 in North America had heard of it. But that's entirely changed. I think last week or the week before, Base broke a record number of layer 2 transactions per day at 4.5 million, I think. It's become a chain that's incredibly popular, not just in North America. We're seeing activity all over the world, and increasingly some of the largest projects are in Asia. It's not verified, but, one of the social platforms here, having chatted them this week at Token 2049, claim that they account for 10% of all the activity on chain on Base. So what Base is effectively is just a lowering and a speeding up of usage of Ethereum and the utility of Ethereum and gas fees, right? And so the journey for that started out with a lot of people being a little bit suspicious because Coinbase is a large company. Why are they doing this? Why isn't one of the other protocols doing this? I think if you want to build an industry and you want to be successful, you need, the smartest names and some of the largest players in the space doing this. And so Brian's always been passionate about it, and Jesse Polak, who runs the Base team, has been talking about, doing something like this for some time. And so we're really fortunate that it's got the momentum and the support that it's had. I think we'll continue to decentralize Base and kind of distance it from Coinbase corporate a little bit from the exchange side. If developers get access to Coinbase users, great. They don't need to. But more importantly, we're providing a very robust utility with great tools and documentation and support. In terms of support, we're bringing a couple of Base ambassadors to Philippines and India. So these are, people employed by Coinbase to be ambassadors in market. We had 3 Base people attending Token 2049. We have 3 or 4 people just outside us in the office here who are official Base ambassadors as well. And we're looking to have Base DevRel people in Singapore soon as well. We also want to kind of decentralize the support for Base through these ambassadors. So even at Token this week, there were 6 external Base events. Some were in Singapore, basically one every day. The last one's a Base party that finishes tonight, but most of them being hackathons and discussions and forums. And those are run by third parties, not by us. So not by the Base team. So the Base team tries to send people along to support them and patronize them. But the community themselves have been incredibly helpful. There are also plans to technically decentralize Base And I think there are R&D tests on around decentralizing sequences and really ensuring that the technology is fully removed from, necessarily Coinbase engineering, intellectual property or human capital, and really decentralize it. I think that's the end point for Base. But we're very excited where it's at. It's very humbling to have the success we've had. And we hope we can keep supporting more and more major projects. I think our Base teams have been a little bit stretched to talk to everyone, but we certainly talked to a lot of people this week at Token 2049. So it was great for everyone coming to find us and having a discussion.
What do you think about Singapore, Hong Kong, and Dubai? Because these three cities, I think they are competing for the crypto center in APAC, right? And actually, they are maybe the most hot three crypto center now. What do you think about these three cities? And why Coinbase choose Singapore as an APAC center?
Yeah, good question. I mean, they're certainly hot. I was very sweaty coming over here to the meeting, trying to get here. Look, I think from my TradFi days and just from my kind of trading days, even in the Domino's days, like Singapore and Hong Kong have been competing to get business forever, for everything. Oil trading, financial services, wealth management, tourism, whatever. I remember being at Domino's and Hong Kong Trade Association, HKTD, chasing me to say, hey, Domino's should have their office in Hong Kong. And then another group from EDB contacting me, hey, come to Singapore. We should build a huge central kitchen for dough balls or pizza in Singapore. So I think it's not a new thing. I think the new element is Abu Dhabi, Dubai, the Emirates, right? And so to my mind, we have to look at where we want to be based as a brand. And again, our brand is very heavily geared towards trust and, users knowing that the network has never been hacked and all sorts of things around resilience and technological vigilance, et cetera, et cetera. We may not be the shiniest or the sexiest exchange. We want to, and we're changing it to be like that across INTX and RAT. But we're a little bit more kind of, I'd say, Anchuan, Wending, kind of stable, safety, and kind of, we have insurance, et cetera, et cetera. So a lot of the things that the MAS and Singapore Inc. kind of stand for probably match what we've been doing. And so that's why we applied for the license in Singapore. The Hong Kong regulations did come earlier, and they did launch regulations before Singapore, and they have in a number of areas. But at a global level and a kind of fundamental level, Coinbase have had some concerns with the requirements for local liquidity, local matching engines, local market makers, etc. We believe that really goes against the raison d'etre, the kind of the meaning, the kind of thesis of decentralized finance. So we've hesitated from registering there yet. It's not to say we wouldn't. We've had lots of conversations with HSBC around sub-custody. We've looked at lots of solutions to be in the Hong Kong market. And we have Hong Kong customers. And, our institutional team have lots of Hong Kong customers. We have RAT users, retail advanced traders from Hong Kong, etc. So we can be there. But as the regulations currently stand, it's quite challenging. People like Animoca are a big kind of key account for Coinbase. They work with Coinbase on the Web3 side. They do custody. They use Prime. They're using our NFT platform. We're listing their education token. So we have a warm relationship with Hong Kong, and we would like it to be even warmer. A number of our international teams have been in long conversations with the Emiratis and Dubai and Abu Dhabi and speaking to groups there, and it's something we're still exploring. I think one thing we kind of need to be somewhere as a hub is for there to be a lively user group across the three buckets of our business: retail, institutional, and developer Web3, aka Base right now. And so that we definitely have all of those in this market. that might not be quite as relevant for the kind of market out to the west over past India.
Yeah, understand. What do you think about the offshore exchanges like Binance or the OKX and Bybit? Because I think there are 2 point of views. One point is, in the future, everything in crypto, they need license, they need compliance. So the offshore exchanges, their space will smaller and smaller. But also another view is because only the America has the power to regulate you outside of America. But other countries, they just fine you some and get some money from you, but they have no power to regulate these offshore exchanges. So they will exist maybe in a very long time. What do you think about it?
Yeah, I don't think Coinbase. We don't wake up every day and think that Binance is going to disappear. They're a very respected player in the market. They're an enormous player in the market. Users are very loyal to them. We have lots of users who use both platforms, and there are many traders who want to spread their trading across a number of platforms as they do in TradFi or other markets. So I think we have a lot of respect for Binance. We're not in a habit of commenting on the competition, and it's not my position to kind of say where do we think they're going to go in the future. We believe that our strategy of complying with regulations very seriously in all of the major geographies that we're in is going to pay a dividend for us. And so while that is costly and it takes time, it's something we continue to do, and we're really proud of the work we do. We've done a lot of work to comply in Europe and MiCA. It's costly and it takes up a lot of engineering resource, but we know it's the right thing to do because those are the regs. And actually, Europe is ahead of any geo in the world for regulation. Ironically, everyone does look to the US. You're right, to the SEC, but they're behind in everything. So we're hoping that will change with the upcoming regulation. I think you could say quite squarely, those other exchanges, the ones you mentioned, are trying to upskill their leadership and hiring people with TradFi backgrounds and doing all sorts of things to comply. But we think it's an interesting, kind of moat that we're trying to build to ensure that, we're going to be one of the leading players and continue to be one of the leading players into the future.
Understand. I think in the crypto world, not only in the US, but also in the APAC, so many people, they care about which one will elected as the next US president, right? because we don't know why the Trump is suddenly become a crypto lover, right? And we don't know the reason, but actually he just used Bitcoin to bought a hamburger yesterday. Yeah. So if Trump win, what do you think the US crypto environment, also the world crypto environment will become a very success and really better?
Yeah,
now?
Yeah. Look, I'll direct you. There was a great piece on Bloomberg TV, which is free, yesterday from Kara Calvert, the head of our US policy team. She was asked this exact question on President Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris. And, we are confident that whichever candidate wins is going to support crypto more than in the past. So I think that's probably something we're comfortable to say. I'm not a US voter. I don't live there. I did live there for 7 years, and it was a wonderful time of my life. And I think the world are looking to this election. But, there's 2 billion people voting this year all over the world in quite large kind of democratic economies. And in all of these geos, this is important. So that's why we're doing Stand With Crypto and quite carefully taking Stand With Crypto to other markets where Stand With Crypto can actually have appeal and work. We have to be careful taking Stand With Crypto outside of America so that we're not seen to be stepping on anyone's toes in terms of their domestic politics. But I think the outcome is positive. I'm not going to comment on who buys hamburgers with Bitcoin, particularly politicians. But Yeah, I think it's a really timely question, and in about 50 days we'll know.
Yeah. My last question is, we already talked more than half an hour, and you must be very tired these days. Yeah. My last question is, you have a really rich experience about China. What do you think about the crypto future of China? Will China open to crypto at some time, also in some part? But we all know Hong Kong is a part of China, and Hong Kong is it definitely has the got something from Beijing, right?
Certainly. And look, these are the views of John O'Loghlen, not of Coinbase. And I think the first
just
thing,
one personal view, not
if someone says they're an expert on China, you can immediately be sure that they're not. Look, I haven't been in China since before COVID, so I talk to lots of Chinese friends, and I'm on lots of WeChat groups, and I read a lot about it, and it's a topic that I've discussed at every dinner I've been at this night because my friends are from China. And so the main topic we've actually talked about, more importantly, is just the economy. So I think the one thing that I would say is a clear observation is kind of a bit of a lost decade. It seems to be, it's going to be really hard for the next 5 to 10 years for China to kind of get back to where it was economically. But all of the most exciting projects I've seen on Base this last week at Token, where are the founders from?
Oh, from China?
当然.
Oh, cool.
他们是中国人，对。
Oh, yeah, China has so many developers.
Exactly, so many developers. And so it doesn't really matter if they're based in Taiwan or Hong Kong or Singapore or whatever. I mean, people came to Token from China. I mean, if you're walking through the 4th or 5th floors of Token, there's Mandarin being spoken everywhere, and it's not like Singaporean Mandarin, it's like mainland Mandarin, right? So clearly, China and Chinese intellectual property is, part of the furniture of crypto going on kind of the future of crypto. Yeah, Hong Kong and Greater Bay Area has been a sandbox for all sorts of things since, Deng Xiaoping opened up China. And I think at some point in time, I think there's a future in China for crypto. And you can't close your economy to everything forever. People will always find a way to get to something. And this is not dissimilar to, my larger problem around this kind of philosophical thing about trying to stop people having access to things they want that improve their lives is the same space in Australia. The big banks are trying to stop you from topping up your crypto account with fiat, putting 24-hour holds and $10,000 limits on deposits, and on some case on withdrawals, because they haven't worked out the risk profile of all of the crypto users, and they think that everyone living in crypto land is involved with frauds and scams. It's just a really lazy, uninnovative approach to something that they don't understand and they see as a threat to their industry. And so that's why we've got to keep fighting and working with innovative players to upgrade the system. And I think that's what people your age and much younger than me and people all over the world and particularly all over Asia, that's what they're interested in. And that's why I love working in this space.
Thank you. Thank you, John.
非常感谢，谢谢 Colin， 慢走。